ความดีรอวันที่จะได้ใช้ทุกครั้งที่ใช้จ่ายเท่ากับคุณได้ให้สิริราชบัตรเครดิตวีซ่าแพลตินัมสิริราชธนาคารกรุงเทพบัตร FIIS Smart TPN Rapid สิริราชทุกยอดการใช้จ่ายผ่านบัตรธนาคารร่วมบริจาคให้คณะแพทยศาสตร์ศิริราชพยาบาลมหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลพลังการให้อยู่ในมือคุณสมัครวันนี้ที่ธนาคารกรุงเทพ
หรืออันนี้อ่ะ
หนูยุ่งยากปะ
เขียน First Simple ไหมล่ะเริ่มง่ายได้เงินคืนชัวร์
ชัวร์เหรอ
ชัวร์คุ้มจ่ายเบี้ยเริ่มต้นแค่เดือนละ500 บาททุก2 ปีได้เงินคืน 2% ด้วยนะ
ลองก็ได้
ยังทำไมจีบเราอ่ะ
เพิ่งได้เงินคืนจากประกันอ่ะ
นี่ก็เงินคืนจากประกันเหมือนกัน
เงินคืนเหมือนกันเลยเนาะประกันของอะไรนะดี
ประกันเกณฑ์ First Simple เริ่มง่ายได้ชัวร์
สมัครเลยที่เว็บไซต์หรือธนาคารกรุงเทพทุกสาขา
ในยุค New Normal ทุกคนกำลังต่อสู้กับสิ่งที่ตามองไม่เห็นแต่วันนี้เราใส่ใจเพื่อให้คุณมั่นใจในตราเบทาโกรที่มีระบบควบคุมความปลอดภัย BQM เพื่ออาหารคุณภาพสะอาดจากผลิตภัณฑ์หมูไก่ไข่ไส้กรอกและอีกมากมายอร่อยสไตล์ Smart Normal เบทาโกรใส่ใจเพื่อชีวิตที่ดีมีพลังความดีรอวันที่จะได้ใช้ทุกครั้งที่ใช้จ่ายเท่ากับคุณได้ให้สิริราชบัตรเครดิตวีซ่าแพลตินัมสิริราชธนาคารกรุงเทพบัตร FIIS Smart TPN Rapid สิริราชทุกยอดการใช้จ่ายผ่านบัตรธนาคารร่วมบริจาคให้คณะแพทยศาสตร์ศิริราชพยาบาลมหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลพลังการให้อยู่ในมือคุณสมัครวันนี้ที่ธนาคารกรุงเทพ
หรืออันนี้อ่ะหนูยุ่งยากปะ
เขียน First Simple ไหมล่ะเริ่มง่ายได้เงินคืนชัวร์
ชัวร์เหรอ
ชัวร์คุ้มจ่ายเบี้ยเริ่มต้นแค่เดือนละ500 บาททุก2 ปีได้เงินคืน 2% ด้วยนะ
ลองก็ได้
ยังทำไมจีบเราอ่ะ
เพิ่งได้เงินคืนจากประกันอ่ะ
นี่ก็เงินคืนจากประกันเหมือนกัน
เงิ งินคืนเหมือนกันเลยเนาะประกันของอะไรนะดี
ประกันเกณฑ์ First Simple เริ่มง่ายได้ชัวร์
สมัครเลยที่เว็บไซต์หรือธนาคารกรุงเทพทุกสาขา
ในยุค New Normal ทุกคนกำลังต่อสู้กับสิ่งที่ตามองไม่เห็นแต่วันนี้เราใส่ใจเพื่อให้คุณมั่นใจในตราเบทาโกรที่มีระบบควบคุมความปลอดภัย BQM เพื่ออาหารคุณภาพสะอาดจากผลิตภัณฑ์ หมู ไก่ ไข่ ไส้กรอกและอีกมากมายอร่อยสไตล์ Smart Normal เบทาโกรใส่ใจเพื่อชีวิตที่ดี
All right, welcome back. And this is the very last session of our Food Innopolis International Symposium 2021 under the theme of driving a sustainable future through biocircular green economy. This session will lead you to indulge the aesthetic of Thai food in delighting the palate the Thai way. And this will be conducted in Thai. So international audiences, please do click the option below for changing the language to English. It is just below this live stream. Okay, this session we are very honored to have our panelists who are veterans in Thai food industry. We would like to welcome first Kun Anuwat Churyen from School of Tourism Development, Maejo University, Director of International Gastronomy Tourism Center. Next we have Kun Dr. Nipatchanok Najpinij from School of Tourism and Hospitality Management, Suan Dusit University, Thailand. We also have Chef Thitid Tassanakajohn, founder of Ledu or Ledu, a one Michelin star restaurant and the 8th in Asia's 50 best restaurant. And also we would like to welcome our moderator for this session, Kun Sutheera Arjcharoen, Business Development Manager of Food Innopolis and Senior Advisor, National Science and Technology Development Agency. Ladies and gentlemen, the stage is yours.
สวัสดีค่ะทุกท่านนะคะก็เข้ามาสู่เซสชั่นสุดท้ายนะคะของงาน
Hello everyone, we are now at the final session of ASFS in 2021. So thanks for your introduction. So in this session, we will conduct in Thai language. So you can understand how we can exchange the ideas together. So we will look at the different aspects of Thai food. So before I start this session, let me introduce and talk about the session that our former Minister Dr. Suwit Mesinseet already mentioned yesterday. He mentioned about the biocircular green economy. In fact, there are four models. There are four important models, and the first model is to drive the industry that we have strength in these four industry, which are food and agricultural sector, and medical and energy and biochemicals, and last part will be the creative sort of economic and tourism. So what we are talking right now, the topic that we are currently discussing linked to other sectors that I just mentioned. And this morning we already discussed about food and health. For this session we will talk in different dimensions. So apart from driving the industries, we have the model on biocircular model, talk about how we can strengthen the communities, how we sort of engage all sectors, including the entrepreneurs, like a social enterprise, either small, medium or large enterprise, to take or participate in our work together, how we can connect the local business to the regional and global business, how we can take local Thai food to global world, and last how we can adopt the science and technology to drive the BCG model. So from now on, with your permission, let me enter to the session that we're gonna talk about delighting the palate, the Thai way. Let me first start for speakers once again. The first person, Dr. Nipatchanok Professor Miu. She's the gastronomer and she's the curator, and she has extensive sort of experience in Thai food. The second speaker, Professor Anuwat Churyen from Maejo University. He's the director of the International Gastronomy Tourism Center, or in short IGCT, at Maejo University. So he's another person who's been working in gastronomy for long, and he has extensive experience to drive food in the tourism and creative economy. Last speaker, Mr. Thitid Chef Ton, and he's the Michelin star chef, and he has expertise in Thai food, more or less like Thai model food, and he experience to deliver food in the global forum. So I'd like to thanks to 4 speakers again to join the session. And at first I would like to ask Professor Ning to share your thoughts about Thai food and Thai sort of style, how you look at Thai food. Can you please just share with us, please? Thank you very much, and hello to all online audience. And I've been assigned to talk about Thainess through food lens. And we would like to deep dive into the local wisdom. We sort of look at our local wisdom, that how Thai cuisines, what sort of what we have in Thai cuisine, so that we can develop and make our countries move forward sustainably. What is written in the right hand side, there are so many aspects, but the first two top one, which is about the river basin life, and how it can give the flavor, how it flavor our life. In the meantime, that's about physical side. Look at the spiritual side, or belief. Let's say religion, belief, or sort of that really connect with each other. So how we can sort of discover it and look at our heritage and put our heritage for further development. With the limited time, look at the first topic. Since we live along the river, and apart from living in the along the river, we live in the tropical sort of countries, and we have a sort of rice. We have more varieties of rice. Look at the water resource. We found, my mother shared with me that when we put our hands in the river, there are a lot of resources. But this is so much different at the moment, which is impossible. We cannot find any food like living sort of in the river. If we need a vegetable, we just go to our garden, take the sort of the fresh vegetable in the garden. So we lost the lifestyle in the way that we lived along the rivers. So we live in the urban area, and so we had challenges. We sort of, the flavor that we have, we used to have a lot of spectrum. Let's say from rice, we had rice every day. Our overseas chef, they said when they test Thai rice, they can feel the good taste of flavor. They sort of satisfied with our rice test. They said our Thai rice has nutty flavor. And we are Thai people, when we talk about rice and we just talk about the steamed, when we talk about steamed rice, we sort of undervalued our sort of Thai rice, even though we have these sort of good products. And if you look in the past, I said that we have many sort of we have a lot of resource, and we have to do fermentation. So we are good at fermenting. Why not? Because we lived in the tropical countries, and apart from that, in each season, like if you look at Chef Ton restaurant, you can see that our Thai food has been changed, and we sort of test and smell a different kind of food. And you can see that the river give a large range of flavors, but we have the challenge. There, the urban sort of the urbanization sort of keep moving. And I read one book by Thailand Kovan. He said that he came to Thailand and he had fresh sort of seafood, and he said that he haven't. He couldn't have eaten in the U.S., meaning that there are so many advantages for developed countries, but they might get freshness from the food because the farm locates quite away from the town. So he said a chance to have fresh seafood in the U.S. without putting the marinated sauce is impossible in the U.S. But while in Thailand, we can sort of learn, we can test the freshness of the food. This is not only about farm side, and if we look at the food way, the consumer, if the consumer do not have sense to eat fresh food, if you don't have hunger for freshness, if you would not like to have authentic sort of food, the cooker will not produce for us. So let's say I would like to tell the consumer that we have to enjoy the freshness of the food. For example, like a vegetable, just eat the freshness and eat varieties of vegetables. And in terms of belief, it really related to sort of Christ or Muslim or Buddhism or Hindu belief. Especially for Buddhist and Hindu religion, it kind of linked together in order for people to produce food. Because they believe that when we offer the food to the monk, we can enjoy this food in the next world. So that's why Thai people try to offer food to the monk. We consider this is how we do the good merits. So for culinary practices for cookers, Buddhism teach people and focus on the word now. We have to make our present as good as possible. This is the Thai mentality. And another point that I can notice, I observe that our chef, look at Thai chef, they try to produce sophisticated sort of food or sort of craft sort of food, and when people become entrepreneurs, we have questioned how we're gonna move forward. Would it be possible that how we can turn the skilled chef to be entrepreneur? Well, we rely on art and local wisdom together. Apart from this, we found that the delicious of the food is not something about we put the flavor. It really depends on the sort of the natural environment. So when we say that our food is good, it's not from our heart and our brain, but our stomach really test and tell us whether this is good or tasty food or not. If you travel to the south region, why you eat spicy food for your breakfast, which region can produce like breakfast, spicy breakfast? But since this is the calling, internal calling. If we eat spicy food, it can help us make us sweat. And if you go to the northeast, a part of Thailand, if you eat sort of main dish, and if you go to the northeast region, people need to do ferment, and they use salt to ferment food. And then we have to look at the northeast food. They are spicy and salty, and this is something about food sharing. And let's say that the way that we cultivate our crops, we cannot do alone. We have to work together. We live in the collective culture, meaning that we have to rely on each other, and it reflects to different kind of food. Let's say if you look at how we consume our food, we share food together with we share different dishes with our colleagues and family members. So you can see that currently a few people have time to cook food at home, or our kitchen becomes smaller. We do not have time, so we prefer to have single dish rather than this. We enjoy our single dish right now. So when we learn about this spectrum, our spectrum of food become smaller and smaller. So let's say we can say that diversity become smaller and smaller. So what we see, the food that we see on the table, it's not only about the result for us or for our families. And one thing that I can observe since I grew up with a family, that we have to use a lot of time, and we have a lot of family members to enjoy the dish together. When we eat food together, while we chat while eating, and with the family members, this is a togetherness. This is how we live together. We share together, and we learn how to share things together when we eat together. This is something that it's more or less like kind of the a regulation. This is we learn about take and give sort of theory or principles. When you look at Thai families, when we share dish together, we can chat or talk and eat together. But once you have your dish, you eat alone, you used to save food for your family, but this is no longer happen. Again, this is how the culture train us to be patient. So this is all about the collective culture, the Thai collective culture. And next about diversities. Look at the Thai diversities. At the beginning of the year, in last summer, I'll try to make one Thai dish, and one of my students make this dish for me. And I haven't looked at this dish before, but in the past, when I make research on sort of porridge, and I thought that was a Thai dish. In fact, this is not. It's more or less like Chinese food that we adapt from. So let's say look at real Thai sort of food called khao share. We can see different ingredients from different sort of minority groups. So you can see that while we live together, it can result in sort of diversities of food. we can invent different dishes or meal. Even though the Chinese people come to Thailand, when they look at our spicy, Thai spicy salad, and they sort of bring back and adapt in their menu because we live together, we eat together, and there are many more that we can adapt. Next, about commoners and royals, you can see that royal people, there are villagers who been working for royal families, or they used to be ordinary person and they become to be the noble persons. So if you ask us about their food, the food are quite similar, but they are more sophisticated. Their food are more sophisticated because they have more resources, they have more people, they have manpower, they can sort of produce more sophisticated food, and they have the belief once they become ruler, if they become the ruler of the countries, they can sort of produce they can eat sort of more sophisticated food. So let's say like one type of dish, I mean some snacks, no villagers will produce this kind of food or dish. It will take once in a while. Let's say like papaya salad. If you look at the background of papaya salad, we thought there are many ingredients that we do not need to put, like if you look at the royal Thai families, one Thai family ladies who produce or who initiate this menu. In fact, she put a lot of ingredients, and there are many ingredients that the sort of the noble person put in the menu. Well, this is something that people try to use different resources without wasting any resources. So again, this is the importance of the local wisdom. Let me pause here. I'm not so sure if I spend too much time. Let's say if you look at our Thai local wisdom, look at the spirits and physical side, it kind of link with each other. Thank you very much, Professor Ning. Well, what she have mentioned and shared with us about the local wisdom issued. In fact, look at the food that you are familiar with, or if you look at the different dishes that you are familiar since you are young. There are so many stories behind your food. It can tell the way of life that people use their own wisdom. So people use their own skills or in order to keep the authenticities or the tastes of the food. So after we learn about the history of the food, and Professor Ning said she said that foreigner jealous that we had fresh food, and it's kind of hard for foreigner to enjoy the freshness of the food in their countries. So let me ask Professor Anuwat on how he think about the tourism, because we look at the food, we look at the background of or history of the food. Right now, food is just not to fulfill your stomach, but food can make someone gain new experience, and you can sort of enjoy another sort of cultural background by having food. This is how we can help enhance Thai tourism. This is how we can add values for tourism economy. And right now we are in the situation we are reopening the countries, and we welcome the tourists after we been out the lockdown situation has been relaxed. So may I invite Mr. Anuwat to share with us about experiences, how you can enjoy experience through food sort of tourism, please. Thank you very much, Dr. M, and thank you, Professor Ning, to kindly give us the background how the food has been evolved. Food is not only object, it's something that can narrate the good understanding of many stories. And what I would like to sort of share with you, let me change myself to be a storyteller by telling, share with you a different connection so that you can just listen to my story. Let me convert myself to be narrator, just to walk you through what have been sort of what has been after we heard from Professor Ning. I can agree with you more with Professor Ning. If you learn about Thai sort of food history, if you look at the background of Thai food, especially the value of Thai authenticity, this is so important. And in order to understand the value of Thai food, you can add more value sustainably. Once you understand the value of Thai authenticities, no matter where you are, we can deliver the charm of the Thai food. This is under its kind of corporate with the theme of delighting the palate of Thai way. I'd like you to understand further how we classify the Thai way, which Thai way that we can how Thai way can be consistent with the international value. And I think that the keynote speaker would like to talk about these issues. And Thailand, including the other countries in ASEAN or in the world, when they look at gastronomy, tourism, we talk about these issues and we apply, mechanism to drive and to create the wealth for the country by using the gastronomy as a tool. So if you would like to follow up what I would like to share to you, you can scan at the QR code on the screen here. And because some story, as Professor Ning is said, is so challenging, I'll spend 2 minutes already. I have 12 minutes to share the stories with you, but I have so many much content, but I cannot cover it all. But I split into different bullets, and I thought that I will lead you to hear the stories in each part. And I do understand that there are some parts that I will present to you. I will deep dive further as entrepreneurs or creator. We ask Chef Don to sort of share further. And for delighting the palate Thai way, you can see more dimension rather than looking one dish. So today, the aspect that I would like to share with you, I would like to take cover it in different aspect. What's called holistic gastronomy. And when you look at the food, this is an art. It has art and science combined together in food. So all the knowledge, the knowledge set as Professor Ning shared with you, this is about wisdom level. So having wisdom has been accumulated and been created and has been transferred and become our heritage. This is the national heritage, and it will become world heritage further. Let me share with you what IGTC have done on tourism, what and how. I will tell you what the definition of gastronomy, and I'm not gonna say something too academic or theory because I know that you have a different expertise, but I'd like you to think further that gastronomy, tourism as a tool, especially to recover the economy after post-COVID that we've been facing for 20 months, what we should do. So what we have done with the partners, so we apply 4 principles together. The first principle, so we try to stimulate the thoughts. We try to find innovation that we can grow further in order to enhance competitiveness. We implement design thinking in our develop process.
ท่องเที่ยวนะครับเชิงศิลปะวิทยา
We start to think about the gastronomic and art. It's both art and science together. What we want to know is we want to dig into the real value, where we see opportunities to turn it into innovation, and that's the first principle. Another very interesting topic that I would like to share with you, our moderators and our audience, is Another very interesting aspect for us is the how can we create an adaptive learning ecosystem as a destination. What we want to do more is actually the process where it allows that ecosystem allow us to be able to accept what we come up with after we have ideated. Another very important part is everything will be useless if it doesn't really create collective capability or collective leadership in the community. Whenever we introduce innovation in that particular society, so we need to engage the society and make sure that everybody works together in order to drive the collective leadership. And the last principle is what we use in our implementation is we have a little dream. We want to see high performance community. We want to share the knowledge and the capability back to the resource owner in the destination's community. So this principle will lead us a long-lasting value. At the same time, we will create more economic value from the strength of the local community. The stronger the community, the stronger our economy, and the better for Thai business and economy in general. And here's another point of view that I would like to talk about today. IGCT, what is gastronomy tourism? We have conducted some studies in order to help us develop in many aspects that involves food, because food is not just food. We are not just functional eating. It's not just an object, but it helps making people happy. And let me tell you why it can help relieve you of all the sufferings you might see. On the other hand, we also think about the development opportunity by promoting gastronomy tourism to help us close the loop with the agro industries. Like earlier you have heard from other presenters, there are many parts in the supply chain, especially the midstream and downstream, is where we can create exponential value in the supply chain. And we have found a very small key, and that key is culinary tourism or gastronomy tourism. It is a very important key that will become, I would say, an enabler of change. And once we factor in gastronomic tourism, it can help us complete the loop for the food supply chain, and it can help us start sharing equitable values and benefits. Once we added in more value to the supply chain, it can help us drive the economy from the grassroots level. We have evaluated the distribution income because factors by the gastronomy tourism. There's a lot of equity and sharing from many stakeholders, because if everybody works together for gastronomy tourism, it's not just about food. It will involve the culinary, and it goes back to the source of the production. So we use a pool strategy from the downstream, and we pull the whole stream from the upstream, and it will affect the whole chain. And that is what we are trying to show you today. Another very important mechanism that I'm trying to work with is to improve the understanding and the cultural or the heritage or the local wisdom, how to leverage it, how to put it into good use, how to raise awareness, and how to create value out of it. And there are 4 key steps. First, we want to improve the understanding, like Kun Ning mentioned earlier, about the understanding and about the local wisdoms. We studied the ancient culinary records and local cuisine, especially where we used seasonal ingredients. And in Thai, we normally call that seasonal eating, but we eat what the season offers to us. And this is part of our study. But if you want to see more details, please feel free to scan the QR code. And I have only about 10 minutes today to cover, but there are more details in the QR code. Another interesting part for our initiative is we found that the food chain will be equitable and sustainable. It starts with all stakeholders understanding. Gastronomy tourism can be a very important and very powerful communication tool to everyone, to the new generation, and to people in the supply chain. And I call this activity or initiative Food Journey. I want to bring people to learn about the food system. It's not as important that they get a chance to see the sauce, but I want them to have an emerging experience. They will see the value in all steps, in conservation, in development, and etc. And we found that the success rate after this initiative, especially when we work with the younger generations, is very promising because the younger generations are the one who will be cater and foster the future of Thai food and even the world's food. So I want to leave the future in our next generation's hands. And I use gastronomy tourism as a tool to communicate with our people and different parts of food chain. And Dr. M was trying to talk about the experience part, but this will be part of this. It will integrate it into the very fabric of this journey. And once they start appreciating the value and they will start open up to everything, they will start to learn about what we want to communicate with them. They will start to understand more about the conservation and the Thai value and more insights about food. So this is a very good beginning. And this is a very important point. I believe that gastronomy tourism can be a very important media and a very important tool for everyone in the food chain. It is truly powerful. And this is another very interesting thing. Seasonal eating. I had a chance to work with other experts from many backgrounds, including designers and chefs, like Kun Ning said, and food experts and food scientists from different departments, and especially botanists and the sociologist. We try to learn about the root of local food in each area, why they eat that and how they eat it. If you look at my vlog, you will find the food concept. The first step is food is culture. That's the first step. Food is culture. Food is a tool that human created, and we always use it in the community and in our society. And most importantly, food is fluid. It has its own dynamic, and we are interested in its dynamic. And I have found that in 12 months, there are seasonal food. I used to work with about 12 chefs actually, so each chef will take care of the food for each month. Each chef will try to use the seasonal ingredient as much as possible. So that's my requirement. In a menu, that you need to follow at least 5 key ingredients from each month or each season. So we have taken hundreds of ingredients into our projects, and we also explain that using the science. We want to explain and help people understand better about the Thai food, but our ultimate goal is something quite different, because this project is already there because we want our consumer to first enjoy more varieties. Today we have possible ingredient list, especially herbs and foods. We came up with about 1,400 and 1,600 foods, but we actually consume less than 10% of the whole list. So as today we are talking about BCG and sustainability, right? Today, sustainability has become mainstream. If you want food or the whole food universe to be mainstream too, you have to make it better. Have you heard about the story around your plate? Have you ever heard about this concept? There are many stories around the food you are eating. Especially, what we need is we need to construct our knowledge based on our local wisdom that came from our heritage. If we can do that, our gastronomy tourism in Thailand will be very, very interesting. And I also believe that our friends in Thailand and the whole ASEAN or Indochina region, we also have some common heritages actually. So Thai food is not just Thai food anymore, because Thai foods we have so many friends around this region and lots of history. And the history is also based on the same culture. So that's another perspective from the downstream side. We want to see gastronomes and food experts who really understand these relationships, the relationships between the agriculture and food and the whole supply chain if possible. And if we want to make gastronomy tourism a tool to help us revitalize our economy after COVID, we might need to rethink about that. We need to reimagine it. But reimagination also requires a lot of knowledge and know-how in order to look at the same thing in a different perspective. And to keep it going, we need to make sure that it can be commercialized. So I am very interested in these gastronomes or gastronomists. They will have to turn themselves from gastronomes into entrepreneurs. And this is one of our objectives. I believe that we will see that very soon. We will see it more clearly very soon, especially for gastronomy tourism and the stories behind that. So that's about 30 minutes for now. I believe I should stop here for the first round. So that's about what I mean by gastronomy and gastronomy tourism and HEC. Sorry that I cannot cover all the aspects that what we do, but I want to make sure that we can put our local wisdoms and the culture that we have into good use, and we can turn it into innovation in a way that is specifically down to the local level. And this one is from Thailand. This is just a case that we have been doing. It's also part of our work, and thank you so much for your attention. And thank you so much, Mr. Anuwat or Kun Ton. Thank you for sharing with us about the gastronomic tourism or culinary tourism. And I like that you say we want to leverage on the value from the food and the local wisdom as a backbone for driving tourism through food. And then we talk about tourism from a perspective where we want to go beyond just the place, but also food, culture, and adding more value to our tourism industries. That was more about domestic tourism, but again, Thai food has gone beyond Thailand. We need to be able to share our food with other countries and to the rest of the world. We want them to know more about Thai food and our culture. And that brings us to our last speaker today, Chef Ton, who is an expert in delivering Thai food in a new way to the whole world. And as you have heard from the previous speakers, they talk about this very often because Thai food is involved with the season. All season in Thai word is so-called Ledu, which is the name of Chef Ton's restaurant. And I believe that by naming it that way, I believe that there's a background story and there's a reason why you use the word season as the name of your restaurant. And maybe Mr. Thitid or Chef Ton, please share with us about how you think about your food and how you present your food to your audiences or your customers. All right, good afternoon, everyone. And our previous speakers pointed out a very important aspects about the food, including the local wisdom and gastronomic tourism. For me, I would like to cover the aspects as a chef or as a food entrepreneur. Maybe this is more closer to the end users, including the consumers, Thai and non-Thai alike. And I have about 8 years of experience since I started my restaurant, and Ledu is my first restaurant. And actually the word Ledu came from the word Ledu, which is seasonal or seasonal eating, like the previous speaker said. We are trying to connect people, like Ajahn Ning said, people don't have the same way of life like in the past. So people don't really see what become their food and when is the best time to eat it. Thai people especially, I think we have lost the sense of seasonality because we don't know when, because the modern agriculture, which has been industrialized, we can see everything in the supermarket, right? And we believe that there is no season. If you want to eat mango, you can eat mango anytime. if you want to eat durian, today you can find durian all year round normally, because durian actually used to be quite seasonal. Especially the younger generations of people, they don't even know what do we mean by durian season in Thailand. So I want to create something like a restaurant or even a platform to reintroduce all of these to our consumers. For me, as a chef, my job is to cook food, but at the same time, I want to also reintroduce these local wisdoms that we have forgotten back to the Thai people. So we learn about that through my food, and also I want to showcase that to our tourists and visitors who got a chance to try my food, and then they can understand that there is such raw materials in our food and there are more interesting stories in Thailand. This is something only available in Thailand and not at their home. It would be useless if they flew from places like United States and I serve them the same food like cherry, I don't know. They might say that, hey, why? It doesn't excite them at all. But on the opposite side, if you offer some special fruits from Thailand to introduce to our visitors, for example, sometimes you think that they might not be able to eat it, like sator, for example. Turn it into fine dining. This pungent fruit, vegetable, can be turned into a different form, and the foreign visitors might think that, whoa, this is very special, and they might want to know more. There are many times that people tried our bitter bean and they ask me what is really it. They just want to know what it actually looks like, because it doesn't look the same in the plate, because they have never seen they have never tried this kind of taste before. They have never seen it before. They never imagined that it can be very tasty. It's my job to find something that we have lost, like from our culture, and try to introduce people, try to reintroduce food to them by not forcing them, but by make them curious about that. If you want to do so, you need to make sure that your food is first interesting and tasty. It has to be very delicious to the point where they want to know more about this food, and they can learn about that by themselves. Okay, it is this kind of leaf I have never seen before. What about the coriander? What kind of coriander is this? I don't think even people in Bangkok know about this kind of coriander, and why do we have to use that particular vegetable? Or sometimes tamang leaves that we use to cook food in the southern part of Thailand, and I believe that 90% of Thai people don't even know what tamang leaves is. This is one of our job as a chef, I believe. I always tell this to everyone who is a chef, especially the new generations of chefs and everyone who work for me, that it is our job as a chef to conduct these researches. First, we need to understand. We need to know where this food came from, where this Thai food came from. Like that two previous speakers said, there is no real Thai food. That's the beginning. And once you get that, you will open up the whole world. Like khao chai. When you look at this Thai dish, it's not Thai at all. Nothing is Thai there. Even though we call it Thai food, you can look at all history book or cuisine book. 90% of the time, Thai people just brought other people's food and adapt it into our local version, just like what we like it. And we did that very good, and we even make it more delicious than the original dishes in many cases, which is a good thing. And I think it is something that we should try to promote that for the next generation. And so our people understand that Thai food actually came from multicultural background. We never stop learning, actually, in everything, especially in terms of food. We always brought in the best. We always try. We always put it in our own way, mix and match with what we have in Thailand. This is what makes Thai food truly unique. This is why Thai food is one of the top 5, I would say, top 5 cuisine in this world, where people love and people appreciate. But that is actually our wisdoms, like since from hundreds of years ago from the previous generations, and now our job is to take it forward as a chef. And for every chef who cook Thai food, I believe our job is to understand first that the next step for us, we know that we have our local wisdom. We have learned from previous generations. Our job today is to define what is truly our local wisdom, and for the next 30-50 years our wisdom will become the next generation's local wisdom. Do we have anything for them yet? We have received so many things from the past. Some of the recipes that have become global renowned dish like masaman, the floss custard cake, and all kinds of things that it is very well known. I think we should think about that. What is the legacy that we will leave for the next generation? And as the previous speaker said, for gastronomy, it takes everybody, it takes the whole village. It takes education, it takes tourism, and it takes the business operator to work together to reintroduce and rethink and to recreate our local wisdom once again. And to make sure that this local wisdom still live in Thai food and allow us to evolve. I think I'm running out of time, so maybe I should stop my first round here. All right, thank you, sir, Chef Ton. And there were so many interesting points that you have raised, and maybe together we need to find a way to drive Thai food together and from many different aspects. But because the interest of time, I know that what we are talking about today might take the whole day at least, because there are still so many things that we want to talk about. And in the next round, I would like to invite our speakers to leave some final thoughts or some short message. Can you tell us about Thai food? What will Thai food be like? Is there any opportunities or challenges waiting for us? Can we start from Ajaning, Dr. Nipatchanok? Can you leave some thoughts before we close the session? Can I share the screen again, please? I just want to show you some pictures. Alright, let's have a look at this one. This is what I saw last week in the supermarket, and I took a snapshot. This whole shelf is all seasoning, and I took one picture after another, and I realized that the whole block, the whole lane from the Thai seasoning. Okay, start with the good thing. I found that from the mainstream seasoning, it used to be central region seasonings or mainstream flavors. We started to see more local seasonings on the shelves next door, I would say. We started to see different seasonings like fermented fish sauce, that fermented fish sauce from other region, and it is very lively. It's not just hiding on the shelf. It's very obvious, and there are so many varieties. It was very interesting to see the fermented fish on the shelf like that next to these sauces. But when you look at the whole lane, the whole shelf, the whole aisle, I found that Thai seasoning is only maybe 7 to 7 or 1/5. The rest of them are foreign flavors, including Europeans and other Asian countries, which is not, a bad thing, but I still feel that it is so bad that because we have so many choices, it's good to have choices, but please do not forget about our own native flavors. As Chef Don said, today masaman used to be something new in our country. In the past, in the Ayutthaya era, maybe on day one, Thai people might be so surprised that you created this kind of curry with even animal milk. right? But we have evolved and it has become our native curry until we developed other forms of curries in Thailand. So it's good to have something new, but we can be selective. We can use what is good, and the word good, we have to redefine what does it mean by good. It might be good spiritually, it might be good physically, it might be good considering our economic or culture. But please think about that as well, not just saying if it is good or bad. But in the end, it's about local wisdom in negotiation. It's dynamic. Local wisdom is also dynamic, and we always need to negotiate what it means by local wisdom. Its meaning is always under negotiation between partly the consumer, partly the business, and partly by natural processes. So this is my final thoughts. It's good to have lots of these flavors, but please do not forget what we have. Don't forget what originally was here. All right, thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Nipatchanok Najpinij. Novelty is not that bad, but we should maintain or preserve what we have, and to put more value into it is also very important. What about gastronomy tourism? Ajahn Ton, would you like to leave any last thought? Okay, I will keep it short this time. 3 things. Actually, I have so many things on the list, but you can find more in my blog post. There are 3 things for today. First, I want you to look at food as value added. And as I said, sometimes people use food as a tool to segregate people. I want food to be inclusive. But actually, food has a big power for exclusivity. When you look at the history, people just segregate each other by food. And especially in the past 2 or 3 years, we used to have a very big conflict. Try to negotiate the definition, like you said, because people argue a lot about the meaning of Thai food. I want this to be more inclusive. It's additive. It's closing the loop. It is where we and our friends meet. It can help us create friendship between us and our friends from other countries or our neighbors. And the second thing is sharing common culture. When we think about new food, when we want to create something novelty, something new, maybe people might call it exotic, but please do not forget about the common culture that we share. Do not forget about that. Food has its own dynamic. Don't forget about that. As long as we enjoy food and as long as it is delicious, it will always change. That's the dynamic. And the second takeaway is, if you want Thai food to be something like to take the next step forward, I used to talk about this many times, and I want Thai food to become like, I want to call it designing everyday food. I want you to be able to enjoy Thai food any place and any time. Allow Thai food to help you create a long-lasting impression. So maybe Chef Don, you can help me, and maybe Professor, you can help me, and everybody here, you can help me. We need to redesign Thai food to be everyday food. But in order to do so, we really need to understand the customer journey, everyone's journey, as well as you need to understand their situation, what they are facing in their lives at the moment. Like, for example, after COVID, we talk about supplements, for example, and immunity boost food or seasonal eating, seasonal food that allows you to change the whole world. And at the end, it can help preserving our culture and the diversity as well as the source of food. Or maybe sometimes you want to find something that is good for your mind, that is more fulfilling, because you spend a lot of time in the lockdown. You want some comfort food to comfort yourself. I believe that comfort food is another opportunity, and I believe that you might agree with me. Please think about food in terms of variety. We can reproduce, we can reinvent, we can restructure, but we want to make sure that it has its dynamic and maintain its diversity. The more the better. So everybody who has the same background, everybody who has different background will enjoy this And Thai food like short order meal like rice and we call it rice and curry, but do you believe me? This Thai street food can become global company. We have been trying to push for Tom Yam Kung for 20 years, but in Thailand, rice and curry, that's simple things that you will find in the rest, like a canteen. You will find very interesting menus everywhere. It is where we will find a lots of local wisdom, herbs and knowledge. Plenty of them in each recipe available in the restaurant. Imagine in one condiment or one curry paste, it is a combination of more than 10 types of herbs. The more we eat it, the better for the farmer, right? Because supply and demand, the more the demand is, supply will follow. But last thing, don't forget about that. I want to change the world with one food. So I believe that Thai food can change the world. But if you want to do so, don't forget about what I just said. Another thing is, drinking food, food that you eat while you drink, I want you to think about that very carefully. I'm not asking you to drink more. Let me explain. We should think about something, a bit more generous about the local food, something that people really eat. Real local people really eat that. If we can represent Thai food in that aspect, I believe that it will be much more favored by a lot more people around the world. This local food will be another opportunity for Thai food. We can reinterpret the Thai food, real everyday food, in a different way, something that people really eat it. Even though today we talk about the global palate, designing the palate in Thai way, don't you believe me? Drinking food is one of the Thai food culture. And it will be truly Thai, something that we eat along with our meal. It might not be traditional Thai, but it's really Thai food. And another very good opportunity is, especially for after COVID, is the socialized food, or what we call social food. Some kind of food, it will turn you into something else in the larger society. Something makes you look very good. It's like you want to share the food that is good for the society, the good that you can share. The meaning of sustainability. Actually, there are two more things that we believe that we can turn it into everyday food. There are two more things. First, seasonal food. Food that you find in those festive food in those local fairs and festival. If you really understand about that, please reinterpret it and turn it into a new kind of food. It will add more dimensions to Thai food. And the last one that I believe that we see a lot of potential is the religious and ethnic food. We have seen how people live and how people eat, like people on the highlands, ethnic people in the mountain, for example. I think that truly reflects the beauty of diversity, and that's another opportunity where we can represent Thai food in a new way, in a way that even us and many of you might have never seen before, and let alone other places around the world. Maybe we have never seen these real food in Southeast Asia, where Thailand, as a junction of these beliefs and knowledge, will introduce you. And number 3, from now on, food should create a more memorable food experience. I have 3 key points for this memorable food. I call them 3S, and the first S is the story. Second is senses, and the third one is sophistication. So food that will create a long-lasting impression, you need to have a story. You need to invigorate the senses, and it has to be alluring. The more sophisticated, the better it is. You can look at sophistication in many ways. Maybe it can help improving our talents like Chef Ton and your friends. And it can improve our production and presentation. It is an art piece. It requires lots of technique and a lots of in-depth insight and all-rounded knowledge to represent just one dish. If we can do that, it means that our people are getting better at it. And the better, the more sophisticated we can represent the food, rather than just food as a food, not just about all the senses and story. It can showcase our team Thailand's capability in creating a Thai food for the future. And the last point, this is about my school. It's about using gastronomy as a tool to help us recover the whole region. Let me read it out loud. Our economic recovery can be done by good food. From now on, we need to reinterpret national security in a different way. It will turn into food security. That will become our national security because food reflects the quality of our society and it reflects our well-being, how we live our lives and how we utilize our resources and how plenty our land is. This is the chance for Thailand to tell the whole world that we are a truly high quality destination. When we can do that, when we can show our people that our food is high quality, in the end, people will look at us as a high quality destination. Many researchers has confirmed that. Along with, it's not just about the country, it's about down to the city and the community level. So if we can develop the community through the city development and ensure the food security in each community, starting from that point on, you will see that Thai food can be a very strong foundation to drive the whole country's development. Thank you. Sorry.
อาจารย์ต้อมมีโจทย์มี
Thank you very much, Professor Tom. So there are a lot of opportunity that we can expand further in order to drive the national economy. And finally, let me walk you to Chef Ton. Since Chef Ton work or be close to the customers, so I would like to ask Chef Ton to say a final words about Thai food. I'd like to leave a few words as the entrepreneur, as a chef who been for customers, both Thai and foreigners, to understand Thai wisdom more. As a chef, we have challenges. We have great challenges is to create the local wisdom, to develop a wisdom in a new era. And in the meantime, we have to balance and respect the traditions in the past, how we can maintain or restore the values of Thailand, of Thai, how we can restore the value of Thai food while the world has evolved or move on continuously, especially for after post-COVID, we can see a major change in terms of consumers, and it will impact, and that change will impact to the food. So we have greater great exchange challenges ahead of us. So this is our work. We have to redefine what is the local wisdom in our era. So how the Thai cuisine can maintain in the top world-class level. As the other two speakers said, that we should consider as a base or foundation, and we have to add input. And for those who make decision whether we should keep or not, or consumers, as Professor said, in the past, masaman, the dish called masaman, no one accept that. But right now, this masaman dish become sort of the source of different kind of curries dish, and this is become the core dish of Thai food. And we have to look at our next masaman dish. So people might not enjoy tom yam gung or spicy shrimp fruit soup. So but we have to define and we have to maintain this dish. So there are 10 of thousand or 100 of thousand chefs. So we create each dish, but make sure that we can maintain at least 10 dish. It could be the local wisdom sort of dish, and that could promote Thai food. So we have to work together in order to go much further and in order to drive local wisdom of Thailand. Thank you. Excellent for 3 speakers, and we learned different aspects. We learned experience from 3 speakers, and there's no final answers. What will be the driving force to push Thai food? So we have to engage all sectors to rethink, redesign, and redefine and reintroduce the local wisdom. How we can drive Thai food to the global forum and how we can maintain sort of Thai local wisdom and traditions. And today I'd like to say thank you to all 3 speakers who come and join the session to exchange the idea. And finally, what we have discussed in the session, why don't we help and make food to drive drive the Thai economy sustainably. Thank you very much for your listening, and this is a very joyful session and so beneficial. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. What a great session to end our symposium this year, ladies and gentlemen. And that's a wrap for all of the session in the last 2 days. We would like to thank all of the participants for tuning in the last 2 days. We hope you had a great time in all sessions since yesterday morning until now. And also thank you very much our 40 leading speaking and food innovation globally for joining in this year's symposium. Now that the Food Innopolis International Symposium 2021 has successfully been completed, we would like to ask you once again for your kind cooperation to please scan the QR code to give us the feedback, and you can also click on the questionnaire button below to give us the feedback as well. This will be very useful for our team to better and improve our conferences and symposium next time. For today's event, we would like to extend the appreciation and gratitude to all of the supporters, whether it be Bangkok Bank Public Company Limited, Beta Grow Public Company Limited, SCG Public Company Limited, and on behalf of the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation, Food Innopolis under the National Science and Technology Development Agency, in collaboration with Thailand Management Association or TMA, we would like to express our gratitude for all your participation, exchanging opinions and perspective, and becoming part of the network to drive food innovation. We wish to meet you once again for the Food Innopolis International Symposium next year, 2022. But for now, goodbye and have a very great one. Thank you so much. สวัสดีครับ
มีพลังความดีรอวันที่จะได้ใช้ทุกครั้งที่ใช้จ่ายเท่ากับคุณได้ให้สิริราชบัตรเครดิตวีซ่าแพลตินัมสิริราชธนาคารกรุงเทพบัตร FIIS Smart TPN Rapid สิริราชทุกยอดการใช้จ่ายผ่านบัตรธนาคารร่วมบริจาคให้คณะแพทยศาสตร์ศิริราชพยาบาลมหาวิทยาลัยมหิดลพลังการให้อยู่ในมือคุณสมัครวันนี้ที่ธนาคารกรุงเทพ
หรืออันนี้ดูยุ่งยากปะ
เปลี่ยน First Simple ไหมล่ะเริ่มง่ายได้เงินคืนชัวร์
ชัวร์เหรอ
ชัวร์คุ้มจ่ายเบี้ยเริ่มต้นแค่เดือนละ500 บาททุก2 ปีได้เงินคืน 2% ด้วยนะ
ลองก็ได้
ยังทำไมจีบรอ
เพิ่งได้เงินคืนจากประกันอ่ะ
นี่ก็เงินคืนจากประกันเหมือนกัน
เงินคืนเหมือนกันเลยเนาะประกันของอะไรนะดี
ประกันเกณฑ์ First Simple เริ่มง่ายได้ชัวร์
สมัครเลยที่เว็บไซต์หรือธนาคารกรุงเทพทุกสาขา
ในยุค New Normal ทุกคนกำลังต่อสู้กับสิ่งที่ตามองไม่เห็นแต่วันนี้เราใส่ใจเพื่อให้คุณมั่นใจในตราเบทาโกรที่มีระบบควบคุมความปลอดภัย BQM เพื่ออาหารคุณภาพสะอาดจากผลิตภัณฑ์หมูไก่ไข่ไส้กรอกและอีกมากมายอร่อยสไตล์ Smart Normal เบทาโกรใส่ใจเพื่อชีวิตที่ดี